fabuliso.
Fabuliso.
We're on, we're in business.
Yes.
Welcome to the Poddy, Jords.
Thanks for having me again and back.
So good to have you back on. I'm looking forward to doing another one and probably being a little bit smoother this time.
See where the road takes us.
That's it. But Jordan, would you start by telling us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, sure. I'm someone who's really enthused by the idea of living a life that is full of things that I love to do and trying to interweave the things I love to do with what makes me happy and then what I do for a job or a career. To describe me, it's a pursuit of doing what makes me happy, doing what I can earn money for, but also doing what makes me feel fulfilled.
Cool.
And that's kind of led me on a bit of a path to trusting or exploring things for the sake of just trying it and seeing what I like and what I don't like. Mm-hmm. And I guess to answer who I am, I feel a little bit like Indiana Jones in a way, in terms of just exploring things that interest me for a period of time and kind of moving with those. And that's led me to loving cooking, love being surrounded by nature, by beautiful people that also bring like a successful and positive energy to life, and who I see are trying to just be the best versions of themselves. And that's really helped me carve out the best version of myself. The more and more I be around those kind of people, which has kind of influenced who I am in a roundabout way.
For sure.
So I feel like, without the labels as such, that's a part of who I am. And then a big part of what I do now is a wellness practitioner, especially in the breath and holistic health space, and coaching that. And that's been a big influence in how I live my life and the lifestyle that I live. Mm-hmm. And ultimately creating, I feel, who I've been for the past 3 to 5 years. It's really influenced kind of my next trajectory of who I want to be. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of that answer to that.
Well answered. Me likey. Cool. Well, I wanted to start by chatting a little bit about diet and finding what works best for you, because this stuff, I honestly just find it so interesting, like seeing what's working, seeing what's not, and consistently kind of changing things up. I mean, in my experience anyway, has it been a bit of a process for you finding what makes you thrive?
100%. I think of back to when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15, pretty fussy. I've been working at Macca's, so I was eating a lot of like fast food, and that was kind of a big part of my out-of-home diet. Mm-hmm. At home was still eating pretty good. But I was super fussy and just didn't like trying things. Yeah. But then, over the course of the years, as I've started to become more interdependent and kind of learn to fend for myself, it's been more around what foods really make me feel good, and I feel like that it's still a constant journey. Yeah. But the thing that I'm brought back to and kind of fascinated by, that's helped me come into an era of like thriving in food, is if we think of food at like its chemistry level, it's energy and information. Mm-hmm. It's every piece of food has this kind of makeup, and depending on our body's specific needs, that food will react or respond in a different way to each and every person. Yeah. And so I feel for me, it's been understanding like after food, what gives me energy, what makes me tired, what is that energy information doing to my stomach or my thoughts? Do I, and a lot of people don't necessarily associate that, but do I eat something and then I start to spiral into some negative thought patterns, which can be 100% your food just influencing your body's chemistry and your brain's chemistry. And so kind of been really curious and exploratory with how do I feel after meals and becoming aware of that. And feeling into the energy that food feels like in my mouth. So what I mean by that is like, does that food taste alive or does it taste dead?
Yeah.
And a good indicator of, is something going to give me energy? Is the food's going to be more alive, or the closer it is to its alive state, the better it is for me. The further away it is, or the more processed it is from that state, the more it's going to drain my energy. And so I feel probably the last 8 to 10 years has really just been exploring. I was vegetarian for a while, vegan for a bit, but that really helped me actually just kind of realign my path and see what vegetables and how that food could support me. And then as I started to feel into my food, I was starting to feel like more meat, and that then led me to trust what is my intuition kind of leading me to, at the shops or the markets. Where are my eyes led to, and how do I eat with my eyes? And that's actually helped me thrive even more. So I feel like that's kind of been the journey to being exploratory of the different foods that we have on offer and how they make me feel, because we're all different.
Super. Yeah, that's brilliant. And what are your thoughts on sugar? Like sugar as a collective, including fruit as well, and then just processed sugar.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the source for me. For where am I getting it from? What's the quality of that source? Again, how does it affect me? I feel that when I have too much dark chocolate, for example, which doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of sugar, but it's like super potent on my nervous system. And I feel that's like jittery. And that's, there's obviously a few other things there, but I think tuning into how something makes you feel is the important thing there. I love like honey, maple syrup, love fruit. I think that's so supportive of giving us energy. And the analogy I like to use, and where I feel sugar plays such a vital role in our lives, is that if we have a fireplace, and that fireplace we have like protein as the big, thick hardwoods, fat as kind of the middle woods, and then carbohydrates, and if you've got the word, or sugars as the kindling. It's like they can be really good to spark energy, but if you want to keep the fireplace burning all winter long, you're going to need some good quality protein and fat. So where sugar, I think, comes into play is it's supportive of energy, or even from a taste perspective, it obviously tastes so good. So you're still using it, but being mindful of what you pair it with to help support how long that fire within you can burn.
That makes sense.
Because if you just have lots of sugar, you'll get a really cool high, and then you'll just crash, and then you want more sugar. And this is your day. And it's like, ooh, that was a wild day, but just because you're chasing that next sugar high. So I think if you're mindful of how you eat sugar and how you pair it with things, it can be really supportive. And that's where I've learnt that in general, sugar for breakfast doesn't really support my appetite for one, a long period of time, but two, I feel that my brain starts to chase that if I have it early on. And so I'll try and have it later in the day, but the exception to that rule is fruit. With, I love to have fruit as the first kind of thing that I eat, because it's so hydrating for the body and the brain. And so that's where I'd say there's an exception to the rule, because of fruit is a whole food the other vitamins and minerals that are intertwined and kind of making up the fruit balance or support the sugar in being able to be digested in a more what's the word, like supportive way
Yep.
of the body versus the spike of, say, a processed sugar.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, and just processed sugars, again, like going back to what I was sharing before, the more processed it is from its source, the less it's going to support your energy, and the more energy it's going to start to take.
Yeah.
So where you can maybe substitute for a real source, or using like a coconut sugar versus a white sugar.
Yeah.
And seeing how things feel for you too,
Yeah.
because we all react differently. And just being mindful of your mood or your energy after you have that, like just being around kids and when they have sugar, like after the Easter period, when they have lots of eggs, like the tantrums and the crashes, and they're just a perfect example of how it just affects your energy.
Yeah, and your brain.
And your brain, yeah.
Big.
So big. So if you're living off that, can you imagine the constant like need for it?
Yeah.
And ultimately, carbohydrates will break down into glucose, which is the energy that sugar will break down into. So being mindful of your energy and how that affects you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love that. Well said. Well said. I wanted to talk a little bit about posture and like organs and stuff like that. We kind of touched on it last time, but I felt like you definitely had more to say on that. And I love good posture. I think it's really important. And I've noticed a lot with my friends and stuff when they're going through like a hard time, or they're telling me about a story that's like hurt them or something, they'll start to like crouch down, and I've been doing a thing where I just like open them up. I'm not trying to be a hero.
Yeah, cool.
But it feels like it leads them to feel more confident and things like that.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had anything to speak to in regards to good posture. And,
Yeah, I love that. Love that you are so observant of that and aware. The probably to start back at like a baby, and when we're born, a baby is born in this like fetal position, and it's quite closed off. Its hands are closed. It's very in its own little world in here, and that's because it's come into a new world that it doesn't yet feel safe in. And so as a baby develops and starts to become safer, and neurologically it starts to support itself through, lifting itself up, or opening its hands, or connecting its feet, whatever that is, that starts to give the brain a sense of safety. And over time, what feels safe will help open our posture and essentially make us taller, because we're feeling safe. We're feeling safe to take on what's in front of us. But as you might see, older people, or even people who have posture, but also maybe trauma or emotional experiences that have influenced that, they start to come into this, as you were sharing, this fetal position again. And that's because their safety and security has been breached, and that they don't feel too safe outside of themselves or within the environment or the experience, and so their body will start to come back into this fetal position. And like an older person, as they get older, their balance goes, or they can't look after themselves, and so they'll start to go back into this hunch position and looking down at the ground and really closed off. And it's also what we're closing off is the heart, right? The heart space, and how open it is to receive or give love. And so that safety and security, when that's breached, what does the heart do? It closes off, and it wants to shut down. And so that starts to influence our posture and how we carry ourselves, because we don't feel as safe to be out in the world and be the truest expression of ourselves. And it's why you'll see some people overconfident, they'll actually start to arch their back. And
you
it's,
see that a lot in the surf community. Yeah, the guys are like,
yeah, well, that's part of the constant patterning
Yeah.
of their brain and the position of like paddling.
the peacock.
Yeah, the peacock.
Yeah.
And it compresses the back and
Yeah.
yeah, that's a whole nother piece. But
Yeah.
the closing down the front is really distinctive when it comes to like what's the safety and support of that person and where are they at. And it sounds like either emotions or trauma or experiences can start to really just close us off. And you can imagine years of that, it starts to chronically affect how someone's muscles and joints work, but also their energy.
Yeah.
Right? Because we have, from an energetic standpoint, our front side of our body is our giving energy, and our back side is our receiving energy. So if we struggle to receive, then we're more likely to have closing off from the back, or it can come in so many different ways, but like back problems, or if we're struggling to give that energy, it can be the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to start to marry the energetics with the posture and see how the energy that we are holding or the vibration that we're sitting in will start to influence how our physical body starts to be. And so it's really fascinating to start to observe, what has someone got going on if they're like this?
Yeah.
Where are they closed off?
Yeah.
And that's where I love the holistic nature of how we look at posture, is because it's not just the physical piece, it's like what is the energy, what's the nutrition, what's the hydration, what's their breath like, because that's all going to influence how someone's body finds its safety and security, or has its foundation of support to actually uprighten, like a skyscraper, right? If the bottom floor and the footings of a skyscraper are crumbly and shit, then if you go 20 floors up, you can only be high for so long, right? The next cyclone comes and down you go.
Yeah.
But when someone's got strong foundations and they've started to like build those foundations, no matter what the cyclone comes, they can still stand tall amidst the storm or the chaos of whatever their life brings them. And so there's this real like empowerment that you've got this inner strength, or the personal power that I was kind of touching on last time, through your posture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is really cool.
So interesting.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. It just says so much about a person as well, the way they hold themselves. I was having a chat with a girl, and she just met a guy, and she was just happy this morning at the cafe, and then she walked away and she just had her chest open. She was just strolling away, just like floating, and I was like, she's just feeling confident. She's feeling herself. And
so good.
Yeah.
That's the power of love, or the power of fear, is that it really can shift.
This is true.
That within you, and then it becomes an external visualization of what you're feeling inside.
Big time.
And I think, the more you can start to read that, or just be aware of how someone's feeling, it's like that becomes your ability to then support them with, saying something or asking a question, or just giving them a hug and allowing them to receive, or helping them receive love.
From behind.
But from behind.
That's
or just give them so much that they can't say no.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's true. That's probably why it feels so nice to be hugged from behind as well.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you're receiving, you can't really be like, get off.
Totally. Or a back massage.
Yeah.
That's why some people just love up here and the lower back, because it's so nourishing to the receiving parts of our energy.
Big time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that. That's my new greeting now. It's just greet with a massage. Straight into the personal space.
Straight into the traps.
Who wouldn't want to be greeted with a massage?
Yeah.
It's
the best.
Yeah. I mean.
You can't say no.
No, I would definitely not. That's really cool. I love what you had to say there. That's brilliant. How would you describe intuition?
I would describe intuition as an inner knowing, or it's like kind of like cogs moving that, you know, when they're it's like when the chain's off a bike and you feel like it's there and you're pedaling but you're going nowhere. But then intuition's almost like you know that things are moving and that the wheels are turning, or that that's the right path.
Yeah.
That feels good. I think it comes back to that feeling into things. And what can you feel into, and what can you listen to that's gonna help you either make a decision or get clearer on something, or just help you feel it. Like an example of that might be, you know, someone's energy, and maybe it's a business decision, or they're kind of like challenging you and trying to feel into what it makes you feel. Is it like really trying to challenge me and put me out of my comfort zone, or is it straight up just blocking me?
Yeah.
And I feel like when your back's against the wall, that's when intuition you really start to trust it.
Yeah.
It's like the classic horror movie of like, I'm going into this house, but I'm not really sure what's going to happen. It's like quite eerie. And I feel like that's a really extreme example of intuition.
Yeah.
But it's that inner knowing that you feel something's right, or it's not right here. Yeah. What do you feel yours is, out of curiosity? Or how would you describe it from your experience?
How would I describe it? I'd say a similar kind of way to what you said as well. Again, in knowing just that little voice that was always kind of there, that maybe I have in the past suppressed a little bit and been like, oh, but what if this? What if that? And it's just, if I was to always come back to it, it was just always there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just quiet,
Yeah.
but like assured.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, always that initial. It's the initial one. Because so many things can kind of just pile up on top. And yeah, I think that's what it is. It's safe as well.
Yeah, it's like a trust.
Yeah.
And I feel, to build on what you shared, it's like the soul will whisper and the ego will yell and scream.
The soul
And
whispers,
intuition will, you know, it'll be in those whispers more often than not.
Yeah.
Because it's your soul guiding you to the next place, or next conversation, or the next word.
That's it, hey.
Yeah, and so it's just being mindful of the tone, or the loudness of or even the energy of the voice or the inner dialogue.
Yeah.
And what does it feel like it's yelling at me?
Yeah.
Because then it's probably just the ego and the mind trying to like really challenge you to listen deeper. Or is it that you can hear like that faint whisper of the soul?
Yeah.
Or is everything still and that the soul just comes up and shares?
It's interesting how the ego and the mind just can kind of come in and just bulldoze for a while. And then in stillness, the little soul, the little intuition's like, hey,
I'm here.
He's still here.
Yeah,
it's
it
so
is.
interesting.
Yeah.
It just took me straight back to yesterday, where I had like a little moment of clarity when I was writing. And yeah, it's funny, I look back at times when the ego just overpowers, and it's just crazy how you can really believe what you're thinking and get so attached to the thoughts. I'm just like, wow. Like,
The ego's a great storyteller.
such a good storyteller. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
She's gotten real good at that.
Real good. And it's been conditioned to come up with stories or find ways to do things. But it's also, you know, the ego is not an evil thing. it's so necessary to put into action what our soul
It's true.
needs to do. Without the ego, we would just be an actionless soul in a way, or just a spirit. And so I like to think, and something I was shared early on in my journey that's really supported, I guess, the letting go that the ego is a bad thing is like it's ego and the soul are two sides to the same coin, and that one, without one you don't have the other.
I love that.
And so you need the ego to bring action to your dreams that the soul ignites.
Yeah.
But you obviously need your soul for that higher calling or that higher potential perspective or the whispers. And so trying to have a supportive inner dialogue with the ego, no matter where it's at for you, has helped me start to create a conversation with it rather than, wait, don't, no,
nothing.
shut up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, why are you saying that?
Yeah.
Just kind of having like a curious compassion and loving kind of dialogue that can support you just exploring what it's sharing.
Yeah.
Because that's also a gift, right?
Yeah.
If it's telling you to jump off a cliff, it's like, why is it telling me that? What's the root of that?
Yeah.
Where does that lead me to? And then see where your soul takes you there.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So. Oh, it's a good one. My kinesiologist just simply put, we're going to spend so much time in our heads in our lifetime. It's just like, we just need to make our thoughts our friends.
Yeah.
Simply. And I guess it's just about having a better experience within with a kind of dialogue.
Just not letting it run the story.
Yeah.
The story.
Yeah.
And kind of.
Yeah.
Or you're being the author of that story, and how can that choice start to shift that dialogue, or how that ego becomes your friend. Because it can be so supportive if we're in the driver's seat of trying to write the story. It's when the story writes us that it becomes that kind of overpowering or overbearing thing, which is why a dream or having something bigger than yourself can be so supportive, like your mission and your purpose, whatever that is. If that's to be at home with a cat, or if that's to save the world and make world peace, whatever that is, having that is going to be so supportive of like guiding you beyond that story or that that depth that it can maybe drag you sometimes. It's like, can you just realign where we're going, and just like kind of fact check yourself in a sense.
Yeah.
Be like, this is where we're going.
Yeah, it's where I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
It's funny that I realised not long ago that sometimes like my ego will play out this story, and then all of a sudden I'll notice myself acting completely differently, like in a way more beautiful way than what my head was doing. So my actions will just kind of, sometimes I guess I think a lot, and then I touch to my thoughts, and then I'm like, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a bad person, whatever it is. Like, we all have our moments like this. And then, but I've been noticing that my actions have been speaking louder than my words, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like, a really nice reflection. Because sometimes you can say some things and then you do something else and you're like, well, yeah, I did react in a way better way than what was going on up here.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah.
And I think that's probably the intuition as well that takes the reins a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because the intuition is going to tell you, hey, it's probably not the right thing to rob a bank. Yeah. But your head could be saying, I want all that money.
I want that dosh.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
And the actions there, like what you're saying, is so much more it's almost like the body's response to that.
So it's that. And it's more trust as well, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is
Totally.
it's so the body's response.
Yeah.
It's cool. It makes me feel like a better person. I think
that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's an empowering thing to, I guess, also see how there's so much connection but also disconnection in terms of we can think something but act in a different way.
Yeah.
And that can go both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
But also, this is something that I feel has just been super potent the past like week or two, is controlling what you can act upon.
Yeah.
And if that means that you do something that's going to positively influence, or you know that's the right thing, what does that start to do to how you think? Because it's almost like putting your foot forward before you think about it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So it's like that mood follows action.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I feel like that's been really potent in my energy coming back from a holiday, to just not think about it and do it. I think that's why Nike's been so successful, because it's, don't think about the run, just do it. Just do the run. It doesn't matter how long you go for or get caught up on the time or the speed, just do it and see how you feel after. What happens after that? It's like the momentum of that is so much more powerful than just the being in your head.
For sure. Definitely helps a lot more. That was also one of my secrets to getting back on track after that holiday period, was just doing the thing without an outcome, just being like, have a stretch and just see where it takes you. Create the video.
Cool.
Without having a goalpost, which really I think helps quite a lot.
Yeah, totally.
So
And I only saw something cool the other day, and I haven't tried this, but I want to try it. It's trying to integrate more play into the things you do. But this guy had a really cool thing where he'd set like 3 joy alarms a day, and whenever that alarm would go off, no matter where he was, no matter who he was with, he got everyone to like do it with him. So like if he was in the middle of a meeting, he would dance. If he was with a client, they might go for a skate. Or, how can you start to bring this level of like action or mood enhancement to different parts of your day that have no like deeper intention other than to just play and just to do something that just shifts your state.
For sure.
And how you feel.
So good. I love that.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So again, yet to try, but I thought it's a cool little thing to just like get in, do a bit of a dance, you know, feel into that.
Sure.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah, make it just things less serious.
Yeah, less serious. Yeah, and I can take life seriously, and I've learnt that the more I get stuck in that, the more I just derail myself from expectations or missing the fun stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've attracted someone like Ree into your life who I think has a good relationship with play.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. She's got a good.
She makes me want to play more.
Yeah, she's very good at like the fun, lovingness of life, and sees and has a good like compass for that. Yeah. Very, very. So it's so good.
She's so sweet. I love that. So I went to yoga this morning and I was probably feeling like a little bit less peppy than I normally would be. I ate lots of cookies yesterday, some cinnamon scrolls, like I did the thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily have anything on my mind, but I walked in, did the class, super strong class, and I just felt the emotions or whatever just kind of like rolling through me and completely transforming. And I read like a little bit on your Insta about like transforming energy through exercise, and I just think it's so marvelous that can happen. Can you describe kind of what's happening there as the energy transforms?
Well, if you think of it like a pipe, and that if there's a blockage in the pipe, then the energy's not moving anywhere. It's kind of staying stagnant. And so when we move blood, we move lymphatic fluid, when we pump the breath, when we start to just move the energy, it starts to re-energize it.
Yeah.
And like anything that's re-energized, we start to get this like feeling or this sensation of transformation.
Yeah.
Because it's gone from A and it's now I'm feeling like B.
Yeah.
It's like I've got a plain cup of water, I add salt, lemon, apple cider vinegar. It's now transformed the water into a fire drink or whatever you call it. And so you get a whole different sensation or energy from the two cups.
Yeah.
And so similar to water, when we move, we're kind of adding the salt on the fire, and all of a sudden our state starts to shift.
Yeah.
Because the neurological state that we're in, the cells that are moving around the body, the blood that's kind of moving around the body, it's all starting to go into a different form in the sense of energy anyway. And that's sending new information to us. Something like endorphins.
Yeah.
Something as little or as simple as oxygen being burnt and being transferred into carbon dioxide, and that cycle. As a process, when we burn oxygen and when carbon dioxide rises, carbon dioxide helps to open our airways and open our blood vessels. And so if there's more air and more blood getting into the organs, the brain, the muscles, they're happier.
Yeah.
And it's like they're dancing inside of you. And so that's when your whole body starts to vibrate. And it's like if water's still and I start to move it, it's got this different vibration to it. And so that's essentially what's happening at the core of our body.
Yeah.
Which is why just doing it without thinking about it can be so potent.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins has a really good way to, I guess, think about this, and it's kind of building on the ego and the storytelling, is if we want to shift the results that we get and the stories that we tell ourselves, we've got to shift the state that we're in.
Yeah.
Because if we're in the same state that we're in, we're going to tell ourselves the same story, we're going to get the same result. So when it comes to exercise or breathing or just going for a walk or laughing, we're starting to shift the state that we're in, which you start to shift the stories that you tell yourself to be more positive or to be more supportive. What results do you get from that? Fucking amazing results. Because of the state. And so it's like, if you're not getting the results that you want, or if you are stuck in a story, how can you shift the state that you're in first and see what can come from that? And it's then knowing what helps me shift my state. Is it a good meal? Is it movement? Is it laughing?
Environment.
Yeah, environment. Is it, exactly, nature? Is it grounding your feet in the sand? Is it just jumping up and down and dancing, putting your favourite song on? These are all things to just explore. And if those are little joy alarms are kind of moments to shift the state, imagine the momentum and the cumulative effect that you start to build by having these little moments in your day. And there's a guy in America named Joe Holder, and he actually talks about instead of exercise having to be this 60-minute chunk, why don't we see exercise like we do snacks and have exercise snacks where you move for just 5 minutes or 2 minutes. And it's like this little snack that just boosts your energy for the next hour.
It's being creative with it all.
It is,
it makes it so much more interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, like a quick stretch here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read a lot about, I used to be such a Tony Robbins fan.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I still am. I still think he's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I loved the pattern breaking things that he talked about. For example, if you're with your girlfriend and she's having a bit of a mental breakdown, and then she's just in her story, and then you just make a loud noise, and you just go, and then it just breaks them out of their thing, and they're just whoa, and because they're so deep in their story. And I kind of started to use that in my old workplace in the cafes, when the girls would just start just being like yapping and just doing something like that to just break them out. And I just thought it all ties into the same sort of stuff. But I just find that cool because, I mean, I noticed Gel does it to me too. I'm talking and he'll just start shadow boxing. And it's just like, I mean, sometimes if you're saying something that's got a lot of value and substance, you're like, can you not shadow box? But generally he'll do it in a time where I'm like, just having like a wussy moment.
He's trusting his intuition that it's the right time to shadow box you.
Yeah, well, that's it. But yeah, they also talk about that as well in like the David Dieter books, like the Supernatural Man or whatever it's called, about breaking the pattern.
Yeah. What was your experience like with the girls at the cafe? Did you feel that their patterns were shifting?
Oh, completely. Yeah. They'd forget about what they'd been talking about because people get so caught up in the story of like, you know, if you're just like deep in it. Women more than men, I'd say, because we process differently. But yeah, they'd just honestly immediately just forget, and then a customer would come, and then they'd be like,
on to the next.
For me it was just fun.
Yeah.
As well, because you're just like, that's being caught up in that story is not really going to help anyone.
No.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool way of
shifting that state. Yeah. And look, I think where men differ from women is there's almost like you can just stay stuck in the head. I think women in general can be great expressors and let it out, or you know, gossip their way out of it, or talk about it. I think men have a bit more of a struggle at times, because of like the masculinity of like, I've got to figure this out, or I'm the backbone of the family, or whatever it is. But there's so much power in letting the walls down and just sharing it, just to even be heard, or just to write something down, or to voice. I like voice noting if I'm feeling like something's kind of in me, or just voice note it, or go to an empty place and just scream, just to air it out. Let the washing just be free.
Yeah, gives it way less power.
Exactly. Because that story can become so debilitating in the next move or the result that you get that day, and then you're like, I'm a bad person, or I'm shit at work, or I'm a bad father. Just the snowball.
Yeah, that's funny. I had a question about. I have noticed. We've talked a lot about this on different podcasts, but again, they say like women, they process like outwardly. They like to just talk about things, get it out, get it off their chest. Men more commonly go in to process their tings in like relationship and stuff like that. Do you feel called to talk about things that you're processing, or are you generally feeling more like you're like, I can rectify this, I've got it, I don't want to talk about it?
Probably 50-50. I think 50% of it for me is like I'm still processing it. I can handle it. It doesn't need to fall on your plate. But then 50% of the time I feel like, hey, it's gotten to a point where I need to voice it, or something's triggered me to then want to share what I've been processing. And trying to distinguish for me where that like line in the sand is, like how much is that processing starting to get to me and start to run what I'm doing, and take my energy, versus actually me still being in it and just trying to figure it out. Because I think from my solo time, my interdependent time, it was just me. I was just writing. I was just trying to process it myself. So to have, someone like Ree, or even work colleagues or family or friends to process it with, I think I'm learning now how important that is to share it. Of like, if it's kind of going to one extreme of being there for yourself, and then the other extreme is like sharing everything. And I feel like I'm kind of climbing back to find this like balance point of when's the right time to share, to get support. Because if and something we use at Native State that is really supportive of exercise, but also energy is a potential pyramid, and you've got pressure on one side, support on the other.
Yeah.
And if you've got too much pressure and not enough support, you start to limit how high you can reach in your potential, or how much you can explore what your power is like.
Yeah.
And same, if I've got heaps of support and not enough pressure in me, I'll be like, I can do anything, and then no one's kicking me up the arse or lighting a fire in me that I just do nothing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the processing is this pressure of like, yep, I can do this. It's building. Other things still are happening, but when can I express it is going to be the supporting piece for just to be heard, or to ask someone a question, or what do you think about this? And it's this real like balance of where am I at on the scale, and if it is needing more support, who's the best person to support me there?
That's a really, really good question as well, to be like,
who's your network?
Yeah. Because I feel like I have a tendency to be like, I'm going to deal with everything on my own. So my diary's going to cop it, and I'm just, I'm going to process it like, and then I'll be like, maybe you should lean on someone, and then I'll go and lean on the most rogue random person, and then I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
So recently in the last week,
Intuition.
I've been like, in the last week, it's been kind of, things have been coming out, and people have been really surprising me with their level of support, and I've been like, oh, I can go to that person to talk about that, and it's reforming who for what, and who you value, and I like this concept of like people who are actually in the arena as well. It's like, you don't go to that person for business advice if they're just like content in their Macca's job sort of thing. So that's been really cool. And then processing things that I've been like, that have been sitting there for like years, just coming up like, and then you just have a little chat, and then you're like, shit, I just aired it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and knowing that whatever you air out can be supported is like, it comes back to that safety and security piece too. If you feel comfortable with that, it's like,
for sure. And I love these people who understand and also have something to add. Just like a little bit of knowledge that can actually help you through. Because I don't know if you've ever fallen into this, but I've done this a lot where I think that no one can help me. And you're just like, I know myself so well. I know like how, I'll read the books, but then that for me, it's ego. Just being like, caught up in that. So
it's like you put the blinkers on to your tunnel or your vision for yourself or whatever life is meant to be, but other people's perspectives can just help the blinkers open or to come off
100%
completely, and that can be really huge.
Like completely, like it can reroute you, and it's a funny thing because I'm so easy. It's super easy to change my mind.
Yeah.
Like you can just come in and just be like, and I'll be like, oh sweet, I'm gonna let go of that forever. But I'm not one often to like go and ask for it. Sort of thing. So, but this is the receiving thing that I'm learning at the moment, which is so lovely.
It's 100%. How do we receive from the support that we get too? And how do we discern that as well? Like. I think you share a beautiful point of like listening, but also discerning what is there for me now, or what feels right, or what the 1% truth that I can extract from that is. Not always needing to take 100% of it on too. Because there's also the balancing act there. I think read this recently in Rick Rubin's book where he talks about, feedback is important, but how you take it on, or what level of influence does it have on what you do is another thing. Because no one truly knows what you've experience. So it's taking what you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Sprinkles.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. No, you're right. That's well said.
Yeah, he's got a very
Yeah.
cool perspective on
He
that.
does.
Yeah.
He's been coming up in a big way, hey?
Yeah, yeah.
He's always kind of around, but I
Yeah.
feel like recently he's just been coming out with some actual nuggets.
Yeah.
Proper wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess his journey to discerning what he feels is his truth,
Yeah.
and bring that into the book and then the many podcasts and I guess his stamp,
Yeah.
in a way, which is really, really cool.
So
It's quite inspiring to see how he's just kind of stuck to his path.
For sure.
In a not stuck in the mud, but stuck in terms of knowing that we're getting to know himself.
Yeah. No, it's very true. Kind of like Joe Rogan's sort of similar in his thing. He's just the fact that I just mean in the fact that they both really believe in what they have to say.
Yes.
Super different people.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can just. I really like that about Rick. He's just like, yeah, this is my truth.
Yeah.
Just like that about your truth.
Mm.
And that's what I'm aiming for as well in my truth. I think for so long I was just like, I need to filter this, I need to filter that. But it was actually just more about refining.
Yeah.
And then, becoming also more confident
Yeah.
and open and all the things.
And, trusting and kind of finding your groove in the wavelength of life as well. It's like
big time.
the more you find that groove, or the more that groove's tested, and you kind of stay in your lane to a degree.
Yeah.
I feel like that just starts to breed a new sense of power or energy within you.
So true.
Because it's like reaffirming.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, that was, I know that this is where I'm going. Or fuck, I love working with that person because they tell me the truth.
Yeah.
They don't beat around the bush.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to be around that person.
Yeah.
And it's like that just starts to stimulate so much energy inside of you and like give you the life force energy to take on the next challenge or go, yeah, that person's showing me how I can be a better version of myself.
Yeah.
Because they're themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for quite a while, I don't know if it's a tricky one to talk about, this one. It's about, I guess, finding your people and finding the people who set your soul on fire and the people who are going to teach you and hold you accountable and all that stuff. I don't really know where I was getting at with that, but I feel like you've got a good gauge on that, and I feel like it's something that I'm really focusing on now because a lot of people flock towards me and for different reasons. A lot of people, a lot of people don't have the best intentions. A lot of people have great intentions, but it's funny sifting through and then being like, oh, that felt really nice hanging out with that person. Oh, that was energy giving, because I think for so long it was so energy taking. And I'm a giver, and I think this ties in well with the receiving thing. It's just been an interesting terrain to navigate.
Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like the clearer you start to get on your boundaries too of what you want or what gives you energy or what creates a community in your life, it's just becomes so much easier to say no or to stand in your power or your truth, because it's like, hey, I'm not drinking today, and the people that go, oh, you're a pussy, blah blah blah, you're like, cool, you just affirmed that, you're not someone I want to spend a lot of time with.
For sure.
Someone who's like, fuck yeah, well done, I'm with you, or whatever. It's like, cool, that's the feedback signal that you're starting to get.
100%.
And I feel like that's such a beautiful, the more you attune your little antennas to that, the more they just, it's like the universe just guides you.
Comes in a lot more naturally.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
And your energy can be so much more supported then. Because it's like everyone's feeding off everyone, but in a way that's not draining anyone. and that's it's like, wow, imagine,
huge.
you know, I saw what you and Gel did with that latest shoot, and while I wasn't there, I could just, you know, tell visually
Yeah.
everyone looked like the energy was super high
The
and
energy was
and
high,
and
yeah.
giving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like those experiences start to solidify in our brain, in our body, that this is what I want more of.
Yeah, 100%.
This is what I want less of.
Yeah.
Like the food. It's
So
like,
true.
yeah, it's like a good meal
Mm.
can be so different to a bad meal.
Yeah, no, 100%. I
Yeah.
notice that sometimes, pretty rarely, but you'll cook like you'll be so hungry and you'll throw together this meal and it's just so rushed. And then you eat it and you're like, shit, this meal doesn't even have good energy. Like, you just like, it's like you don't have any market veggies left.
Yeah. And it's the energy and information that you put into it
Yeah.
that makes it such a different perspective or a different taste.
Yeah.
I've another book that I've been reading. It's more of a cookbook, but this Japanese guy in Kyoto has a restaurant called Monk, and it's a 14-seat restaurant, and he only seats 14 people a night. That's all he does.
Done well.
Wakes up in the morning, goes to the markets, picks the fresh food, the vegetables, brings it back, has like a midday nap, only open for dinner. But I can even just tell by looking at the food and you know, his story, just how much love he puts into it, and you know, without even tasting it, you can just tell it's of such like high quality because of the intention and the thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
But this idea that we are so symbiotic with nature or the food that we cook or the water that we pour, that everything is connected. And if you poured this and it didn't have great energy, but then I shift it and it's got good energy, and then this conversation, it feels this and now I feel that, and we both feel that, and you know, things are shifting.
For sure.
And it's really cool to, I guess, see how just every choice that we make starts to influence every reaction or action that comes or that we take.
Yeah, no, that's actually so brilliant. It's also a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, it's all got a consequence.
Yeah.
And I've been asking myself, like, will this give me energy? And it's
Cool.
been handy. Just for food and things like that, is this energy giving?
Yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, cool. Love that. It's so powerful to have that dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it all the more fun.
Yeah. And have you felt like the answers you get back have reflected in the results or the feelings that you have?
For sure.
Yeah.
I just have a lot more energy in general, more consistent.
Cool.
And just proud as well because of the discipline of, I mean, eating good feels good anyway, but yeah, just shutting a few things off as well.
Cool.
Like I have a guilty Coke Zero pleasure.
Yeah.
Where I'll maybe I was having like a can a week for like last year, every now and then I was like, I don't want to shut that down, and just things like that where like so healthy already, but just wanting to cut out a few of those things and not be a full Nazi, but just be like, oh, that's really unnecessary.
Focus your energy on the good.
Because I just noticed how much it has an effect when just the cookie yesterday, honestly. It was just crazy. And it's not like I'm having the cookie and I'm super enjoying it and I'm like, I got this for free, like it's so great. But then the arvo, like I'm just like, you're falling asleep.
You feel
like,
it.
But same as everything, same as screens, same as the whole thing. It's all either energy giving or energy sapping. So.
And that's, you know, the beauty of turning knowledge into wisdom. It's like I can say that a cookie's bad for you, but until you actually experience it and feel it, or maybe you have a different experience and the cookie gives you energy because it's made with love and you're just in the right mood and that's what the body needed.
Yeah.
It's like that becomes your wisdom that I can only share with you what sugar's like, but until you feel it, that then becomes your experience and your truth.
Yeah.
And with that, you can then make your next choice or take your next action.
So I asked this question last week on the podcast, and I think I'm going to ask it to a lot of people, just 'cause I'm curious about their take on it and your take in general. How do you see collective energy? So I'll give you a little bit more background because
Yes, context. Yeah.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
we all hear a question differently.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I'm noticing a lot of people doing the same things and going through the same things at the exact same time, and it can be a really niche thing to be going through. And my observations tell me that collectively we move through a lot of the same things, like relationship things can come up at the same time, or this or that, or you know, everyone's all of a sudden just spring cleaning at the same time, and maybe everyone's feeling really creative, or everyone's just like, you know, sometimes you just go out on the street and you're like, oh, things are feeling a little bit like, I don't know, different. How do you see collective energy or feel it?
Yeah, I think a great question. I love the where you're coming from this, because I feel like we're kind of moving into a new season. I feel seasonally that energy changes, and I see that whether it's like summer's quite a fiery energy and like get it.
Yeah.
Being autumn, it's kind of a letting go and dropping the leaves a little bit, getting ready for that, like hibernation in a way. But then something that has fascinated me, and I haven't actually got to the crux of it, but I met an Indigenous guy one day, and he was talking about how there's 7 seasons, and that the seasons are dictated by the flowers. And that stuck with me for 2 reasons. One is that blooming is always occurring. It just depends on what part of your life is it in. And that might be blooming in your ability to like handle grief and be supported, or it might be blooming in just feeling like really in yourself. And 2, I see that as such a representation that collectively there's so many more like seasonal changes that we go through, and I feel like there's the big 4, but then there's also these little undercurrents that we go through, and so I see that influence like classes and just what we do at Native State. It's often that I might share something and everyone has this experience that they can relate to it. So I feel like collectively we're all able to relate to each other, but from a completely different, obviously, experience. And that the collective energy can be really supportive from an environment standpoint, or it can also like push us out to like be by ourselves, if that makes sense. It's like a repellent almost. And so I guess to come back to answer, you know, how I see it, it's like a dance that sometimes you want to dance with everyone, but sometimes you just want to go off and do your own thing and experience what you're experiencing. Because you might be blooming and you might be experiencing other stuff through other people, or you might be not blooming and other people are blooming around you, and you feel that difference. So I feel it's kind of like a two-sided coin in a way.
That was cool. I love those little analogies as well. All the seasons, it's like, it's, I feel like I've understood energy on a different level, because it's through this conversation, it's been something that I'm so interested in.
Cool.
Yeah.
You know, depending on the stage of the life that we're in as well, that can really start to influence our collective energy, because, you know, we might be around people that are our same age and we're all experiencing finding our passion or doing our own thing. but then we also might be collectively around like older or younger people,
Yeah.
and that starts to shift.
Yeah.
You know, being around younger kids, the season or the focus or the collective energy is just like fun and playful and exciting, looking for the next thing, and then older people might be more about like gathering the wisdom or sitting with the practice of looking into yourself or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So I feel like that also shifts the collective energy a little bit too.
Yeah.
And maybe just one other point on that
Please.
I find interesting is there's a thing called divine will and then free will.
Yeah.
And divine will is like the collective universal energy, and then the free will is like the choices that I make.
Yeah.
And I think from a collective energy standpoint, what that may bring to you or what that might feed back to you serves as like either a guide or an opportunity to like follow with your free will, or kind of go the other path and be like, no, I don't want to do that shit, or I don't want to go down that route. And I think the collective energy can be really interesting in helping you discern where you want to choose to step forward. Do you want to kind of follow the path, or do you want to go on your own way? And that's where I guess the intuition kind of circles back in a bit too. But yeah, that's I guess another way to see or feel the collective energy.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many. I love hearing the way other people talk about it because it just opens up so many things in my brain and makes me feel more open as
what
well.
What do you? Yeah, I'll throw that question back on you. Like, how do you feel about that?
I think it's just shifted through this conversation, but for me before it was like, I think I've been caught up in like the spiritual a lot in my life. Like I think I've used it as a bit of a cop out as well, like a little bit of a bypass to get out of the human experience.
Yeah.
But how I see collective energy, I guess I see it, for example, at the cafe in Kingscliff. I notice like as the crew changes, the people working there, the energy just changes, and like the people coming, it just changes. And I notice it as well in, for me, it's like a felt experience as well. In the yoga class, I can notice when maybe the class is a little bit lower and people want like something a bit more calm. I can notice when people are fiery. And for me, it's always something that's interesting to talk about, but it's been more of a something that I see. It feels like you're seeing the unseen sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, you're seeing the connective tissue between the people. Yeah, love that.
Yeah. So, but I really like the way, I just think you have such a good grasp on the spiritual and the human, and it's my goal, is that, I just love to get into the middle of that, because you've got Gel, who's like a lot more in the, he's got spiritual elements as well, but just more, and like I love the spiritual too, so I love having like a good quality back and forth about it all.
Yeah, cool.
But collective energy, I didn't really answer that, but it's more of a just an observation of how people are when you ask them, and where people are at.
And even just in groups, how many people follow suit versus who's the black sheep and will say what they're truly saying. Like you'll notice the first person who says something, that will trickle either a same or somewhere along the line a different result based on, I guess, the power of the group or the power of the person who said that one thing, which I think is quite interesting when it comes to like creativity or a business standpoint, or even speaking your truth. It's like people just like nodding their heads and saying, yeah, I agree
Yeah.
for the sake of it, or is it like actually that what they, yeah, or are you just like, that's not my place to say?
Yeah.
Which is also reading collective energy, because it's like, these people probably won't, or they may not be receptive, and I don't have the energy or whatever that is to explain.
Yeah.
Which is, anher important piece too. Yeah.
It's funny, life becomes like a little bit of a, I don't know, you're like kind of like watching and observing and just like not reacting and then actually speaking up, and I feel like that's where the intuition comes in and you're just flowing. But I just find it so, I don't know, for some reason I just find things so funny in this day and age, just watching it all unfold.
Yeah.
It's just, all of a sudden I'm just like, God, it's all just such a trip.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I think especially as, your antennas, your spiritual antennas start to like pick up things.
Yeah.
And you see maybe a little bit more that unseen energy.
Yeah.
Or you feel it.
Yeah.
And that can start to, I guess, influence where you go, what you do, how you are, what you bring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny that. Been having a lot of those trippy little moments recently as well, when you're just like thinking about someone and you turn around, they're behind you and things like that. And you're just like,
On the like, I'm just curious, like on the, the spiritual and the human scale.
Yeah.
Where do you, I guess, feel the gap is, or maybe it's not a gap, but the where do you feel you get lost, maybe in the spiritual versus like the grounding, the physical, or human
I
piece?
think such a good question. I appreciate being able to talk about this, because I'd love to know as well what you think. But I think for me, life's just been like a deeply spiritual thing, just like, but I think where I get lost is when I talk about like my experiences, my spiritual experiences. I think I don't often have like a sounding board for that, and I think it comes more from maybe being a little bit shut down with the spiritual things that I've talked about. And to me, when synchronicities happen, it just means you're on the right track. That's just what I think. And I guess I'm just trying to find, something's just been telling me that I need to bring them into balance. And I think it's something that I really want to get to a place where I don't need any sort of validation from anyone. I don't need to talk about the spiritual things that have happened to me, or the, those seeing the unseen things. Or it's just something that I'm like, yep, that happened, and so that's my experience, sort of thing. But yeah, I do think that sometimes being validated in it, or just like getting to talk about it, can just make you go, yeah, it's a real thing. I think last week 2 people made 2 comments where they said like, I told them a story and they were like, don't get too attached to that. And then I said that and they were like, that's just a coincidence. So that's why it's quite prominent for me right now, because it really, those things did not feel like a coincidence to me. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and what's your intuition saying there too?
Yeah. Well, on the spot intuition, it just makes me feel like it just rocked me a little bit, rocked the thing a little bit, and I'm like, hey, like, I think it's also a bit of an ego death as well, like a little bit of a, I don't like saying ego death anymore, ego death, but like it rocks the foundations a little bit, where you're just like, oh, I want to think about that, I want to just see, just ask myself some different questions. It also comes down to like, the eclipses and fucking like this and that, and I'm like, I'm interested in that stuff as well. And yeah, I think sometimes it can be a bit of a cop out too, and I'm never like, oh fucking it's Mercury retrograde, like it's all fucked, but I do believe, and I believed a lot about that stuff. So.
Totally,
it's just about how much I want to own it. I think that's what it is. It's about how much I want to stand in my fucking truth about this stuff, and there's an overwhelming part of me that wants to stand really fucking strong in it, because it's shown me a lot.
Yeah, and I think to the degree that you stand strong in it is to the degree in which you don't try and defend what you're sharing, but just know that it's your truth. Because the moment we start to defend what we think is right or our experience, it's like we start to leech energy to people that, probably haven't had an experience or are more conservative when it comes to believing in that stuff. And,
That's it. That's it.
It's cool you sharing that, because collectively we're, as a consciousness collectively, but also at an individual level, we're all, like, the Earth's frequency is rising, I should say. And so as we rise, there'll be a portion of people that don't want to rise with that collective consciousness.
Let's forget about those people.
So that's being able to discern, is that person just being stuck, or what's the 1% truth that I can pull from that situation that's gonna maybe give me some light, or maybe it's just all just for me to learn about my triggers or my reactions or whatever it is.
No, I definitely did learn about those people's comments. I learned through them. It was cause for introspection anyway.
Cool. Love it. So good.
Really good.
Cool.
But we've been probably nearly going for quite a while, so I'll just throw you down with a final question, because otherwise that's going to run out. And we're going to have ourselves another issue.
Seamless it is.
Okay, so following on from what you just said about, like, people who don't want to come with, like, I think for a while I was just like, come on, surely we all want to do better. Let's all go together. Let's all, I wanted to ask a little bit about, like, holding people accountable. And I think I noticed within myself, a lot of people flock towards me to, like, talk about what they're going through. And I think for a long time, the reason is because I'd enable their behaviour. Like, I'd just be like, come talk at me, and I'll just be this. And I won't necessarily tell you where I think you need to change. Because I do think I have a bit of a knack for, you can see, we hang out and we can see, hey, maybe if you tweaked this, your life could be better. So I wanted to ask about, like, having the hard conversations and, like, seeing people's blind spots. When do you think is kind of a good time to hold people accountable? Is it more in your close circle? Is that, like, how do you navigate pulling people up when...
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel there's a level of trust or rapport that is important, because otherwise that will just feel quite triggering to some people. But then also being in your truth about, if you're wanting to raise your standards or raise the life that you live and experience it in that way, and you can see that maybe that's getting in the way of someone and they're potentially open to that. I would say that 9 times out of 10, if you have that rapport and you can see that they're open to that, then the truth may shock them, but ultimately it's going to help them. And so from a coaching standpoint, where I would step in is if that habit or that thing is getting in their way, then my job or my role in supporting their growth is to help them see what's getting in their way. So whether that's what they eat, how they drink, how they move, whatever that is, or a relationship, it's trying to share that as swiftly and as compassionately as possible, and obviously gauging, what their response is, but sharing that truth so that they can grow and coming at it from a supportive way. Like, hey, I've noticed that you've been drinking alcohol every day since the start of the year. I just want to see the best for you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, would you be open to like having a chat about that, or
Yeah.
finding a way that's supportive of them,
Yeah.
not putting them down for it, because that just starts to belittle, or I'm on a pedestal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's being mindful there,
Yeah.
but also being mindful of how you say it,
Yeah.
because this is something I was just reading as I was coming here, but just being mindful of the energy that you're speaking with,
Yeah.
and how that starts to influence the conversation. Because if you're like, coming from a belittling or I'm better than you energy, it really starts to degrade someone, versus like this open and compassionate way.
Yeah.
Or it could be blunt as fuck, and you
Yeah.
just tell them how it is, and
Yeah, I've done that.
yeah,
It's not as effective.
yeah, and so again, it depends on what you feel that person needs to hear.
Yeah.
What's your intuition saying? Hey, be gentle and kind.
Yeah.
Or be blunt and tell them what you're seeing, and
Yeah.
if they take it, they take it. If they don't, then that's not your problem either.
Yeah.
Because again, if that's getting in their way, and you can see that the trajectory is kind of starting to like crumble, how grateful may that person be if you're there to support them and show them that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had an experience where someone's just been blunt with you or truthful, and just said something that you're like, fuck, that hurts, but actually you're right. Because as you said, it can kind of like shift someone out of that state.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck did you just say to me?
Yeah.
You what?
Yeah.
No, but that will just completely jolt that pattern.
For sure.
You know, and so I think there's validity in being blunt, where you maybe see or feel confident in breaking that cycle.
Well, I guess it's also like, you know, sometimes you can come with softness, with love, with understanding, and sometimes it doesn't go through. And that's it. I was doing that for so long, and then Joel was teaching me about just like standing up with conviction, saying your thing. The amount of respect I was starting to get from being more like on shoots as well, like when people were just not, you know, doing what, just being like, and then afterwards they're like, you're so great to work with, and I was like, I was so like, I would have looked at myself and been like, wow, like, but I had to be like that, that figure, that authority, because otherwise no one's taking me seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, again, I guess it all comes back to intuition and the navigate.
And breaking free of that comfort zone too, and that's, I feel, a big thing I'm kind of like navigating at the moment. It's like, where's the comfort zone got me is great, but like to really go the next step, I've got to break that comfort zone.
For sure.
And I needed someone to tell me that, you know, give me that bluntness or that truth.
Yeah.
And as you shared, maybe it's a progression. If like the bluntness is here and the softness is here, you start 30% soft, or you start with the softness, say it 2 times, and if they're still not getting it, it's like, oi, pull them aside, and that's the support. And as you said, gain massive respect. Yeah. Because like, fuck, no one's told me that. Yeah. No one shared that with me, and I appreciate that. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's what an adult will do to a child. Yeah. But children will bicker and not know how to navigate that, because they don't know how to manage their emotions as well. Yeah. But a mature adult will really help support a child getting out of there. That. So.
That's cool. I loved this conversation.
Me
I thought it was so good.
So good.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and
appreciate it. Thanks for being so considered in what you have to say as well.
Thank you.
Very, so I feel lucky. Thank you.
Thank you.